What is the thing that the church sisters ask me about when they see me? When I was in high school, it was about my high school football team. And then it was going off to university and playing. Then I make the transition going into broadcast. For a while, it was like, oh wait, they're not asking me about my stats and my team. And I haven't done enough in this career for them to ask me about that. In fact, forget about the sisters. The brothers are like, yo, when are you gonna get your own show?
Meet Donnovan Bennett, former Western Mustangs football player turned cultural analyst and storyteller. From shaping conversations at the Score to spending nearly 2 decades covering sport and culture at Sportsnet, he's always connected the game to something bigger. And today, he's sharing a perspective you don't hear nearly enough.
If you are an athlete and you reach some sort of level, at some point, you had to get it out the mud. I remember being the underdog. I remember being fourth on the depth chart and having to work my way up. And so all of those applications are the same in other areas. You're constantly dying and having another birth, and you've either one, had success, or B, maybe you didn't reach the goal, but you can put your head down and sleep well at night because you know you exhausted everything you possibly could to get it done.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of You Only Die Twice. I'm your host, Warren Ward, and in this episode I'm joined by none other than Donnovan Bennett. You may know him from his time at The Score and Sportsnet, and after 17 years that time has come to an end. And in this episode we learn about his process, how he got started, the things he did, the grind he put himself through to get in front of camera and get his opportunity, and then on top of that, how to keep it. This episode is about how the storyteller becomes a story. But before we get started, the best way to support this podcast is to like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share with a friend. And without further ado, let's get into it.
When this is gone, I die.
Donnovan Bennett. I've been looking forward to this a long time,
me
man.
too.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that. We love that energy.
Do not know what to expect, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, I didn't prep you, but
No.
you're a professional. You know,
we'll see.
you've helped me. I'm gonna explain how I know you. First
Okay.
time we met.
Okay. Okay.
Which it was a funny story for me now looking back, all
Yeah.
things considered.
Yeah.
But the reason why we're here, I always like to start with the why. I think it's important. We talk about athlete and life transition, and I think this is not something exclusive to athletes, although we started in that space. We've now ventured off into talk about just life in general. With what you've announced recently, with where you started, your career, 17-year career at Sportsnet. Hats off to you, by the way, for that.
Yeah.
Within the score. Score.
Old. That's what that
That's
means.
okay. It
Yeah.
happens to everybody. It happens
Yeah.
to me. It happens to everybody else. But we want to talk about that. We want to talk about what you've learned, the ups, the downs, the challenges, and some of those skills and how they can relate to other people.
Yeah. Cool. Let's do it.
So I'd love to understand why this topic of athlete transition is important to you.
Well, you know what? It's funny because I'm never on this side.
Exactly.
I'm always on the other side, so I'm a fish out of water. So in terms of like, first things first, I love the name of the pod, right?
you.
And we talked before you had a pod.
Yes.
You were just thinking about a pod and
Absolutely.
what it might look like. And, you know, I am a bit of a hater. And so, like, when there's, because
It's a good start, Donnovan.
It is a good start. Because the podcast genre is so oversaturated.
Absolutely.
And I love podcasts. Like, I've got so many on my phone, thousands on my phone, and so a new one will come out, and I'm just like, well, why that? Like, why that name?
Yeah.
Why that graphic? Why that concept? How is this different than anything else, right? Like, why do you feel like I'm gonna spend whatever 20, 40, an hour, 20, 2 hours of my time immersive with you in my ear
Yep.
for you to speak on X, Y, Z? Like, you must really, really be feeling yourself if you think you're going to add to whatever the subject matter is.
Absolutely.
Because there's just so many out there. So for you, and now this is just an advertisement, to come with this concept, which I hadn't heard or seen or even really thought of that much, super interesting. So excited to be on this side of the chair.
Thank you.
I will stop filibustering now. The question you asked was, what part of this transition, this metamorphosis, if you will, intrigues me. And I think there's a couple aspects to it, both personally and professionally. And I think the personal side of it is it's something that you're constantly doing and figuring out, like, what's my ego, what's my id, and what is the thing for me, if there's a barometer, what is the thing that the church sisters ask me about when they see me in my life? So when I was in high school, it was about my high school football team and how's that doing, and Toronto Star All-Star, we saw that, and the team ranked, going to the Metro Bowl, all right, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then it was going off to university and playing, and the village helping me, and you got a scholarship and this, and we're going to help you, and here's a van, and here's furniture we don't need, we're going to set up for your, right. That was the thing. And then playing in university and whatnot. Then I make the transition going into broadcast. And I'm still an athlete. So at that point, and less so now, but in my mind, I'm still an athlete. I'm still coming off the field for the court, and I'm still thinking I'm an athlete first, just doing this broadcast thing. But the world speaks to you. And now it's all of a sudden, it's like, well, what are people talking to you about? What are they interested about? What do you add to the conversation? What do those church sisters, what's Joyce going to ask you about when you see her at the friendship room?
Shout out to Joyce.
Shout out to Joyce. And so my thing was, for a while, it was like, oh, wait, they're not asking me about my stats and my team and how we're doing, and we're going to win this year. And I haven't done enough in this career for them to ask me about that. In fact, forget about the sisters. The brothers are like, yo, when are you going to get your own show? Right? Like, that's just how it out the gate. Like, when are I going to see you on TV? Right? Like, as if you just walk off the street.
Of course.
And into the studio, and then you get to go.
And you're in the main part of it, too. You can't just be a part of it. You got to be the person in front.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you're navigating, how do I answer this question? Like, you're actually asking yourself that question as well, right? Like, I wish I could tell you. I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know, because you're betting on yourself in this new way and new world. And so eventually you get to a place where the thing they ask you about is your career. You're so established that is the thing you're known for, the driver. And I'm no longer this student athlete trying to be a broadcaster. I'm this broadcaster that was a student athlete. Oh, did you know that he played at Western? He didn't just cover university sports. He actually played, right? So then, there's that. And then, again, there's layers to it where then you're known as the broadcaster who, man, I loved you when you started. You're doing university sports stuff. And, man, I know you're busy. If you have time, can you come to speak to our football team and our banquet, whatever? I know you still love the game, that type of thing. So it's constantly evolving in terms of how people see you and treat you. You're constantly dying and having another birth. And so for me, this is just, I suppose, that next transition, the next phase for professional athletes or athletes who got to play a lot longer. They just had to deal with that reality a lot later.
That's right.
And they have, in a way, some tools based off of their athletic experience, but also you have a bigger gap in terms of what that identity is. Because this is what I did from 4 years old or 6 years old to in some cases 40, right? So literally, I've always been this thing. For me, I that window was a lot shorter. And also, I'm a hater, but I'm also a realist. I did know at the time, man, there's not a huge market for 5'9" and 3/4", 170-pound Canadian tailbacks in professional football at the time. There's actually more of a market now than there was back then. But at the time, do you want to run down and be the wedge breaker on special teams? Or do you want to get a real job? And so I knew that even if I got a professional look, it likely was going to be in Canada.
Yeah.
I was likely going to have to work a next job. It was likely going to be, 3 years-ish, because that's, the general average for a professional football player in that league, in the CFL. So I knew that winter was coming at some point. And so it helped me deal with it a little bit.
All right there, King's Landing. I feel you, bro. I think for one, I want to go by what you said, but thank you for saying that about our podcast. It's very important because there are a lot of podcasts. And one of the things I wanted to do was have a campaign about how many podcasts there are and what they talk about. And people talk about dating and they talk about finances and they talk about all these things. And everyone's telling other people what to do. When what we want to do is we want to share what you've done to go from one thing to the other. And that's something that I struggled with. So it's personal for me that I didn't struggle with the game ending. I knew that was going to happen. I struggled with the reality of it ending and then what I have to do, because there's one thing to say you want to create a plan or you want to, start a business, you want to do such and such things. Well, there's a lot of steps between what you said and how you're going to execute that and make that a reality, right? Like even this, as simple as this is, or it takes a lot of work and a lot of steps to go ahead and accomplish. That's why I'm thankful for all the people that are here, right? But even that is something that requires action and continuous effort. Whereas people just say they want to start a business or like when I'm done playing, I'll get into this. It's a lot harder than you think. And I think that message can be shared. And you're right. No one else talks about this and I think partly because nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Like you played professional sports or you played at this level, you get to do it, but I care. So because I care, that's why we're here.
Yes.
You started off at Western. And then when you were done, did you know when you were done you wanted to, get behind the microphone and be in TV?
Yes. Yeah. So when I was done at Western, my last year, and I was a NFL Network junkie that was on in my university house nonstop. Me and my friends and so I'm watching the NFL Combine and NFL prospects and. Reggie Bush was the back at the time, another small back like myself, and how he was being scouted and whatnot. And the equivalent wasn't happening to me in Canada. So I was just like, oh, the CFL is just not an option, right? They're not evaluating me coming out of college in the way that in my mind you evaluate a professional prospect.
How much did that bother you?
It didn't bother me. It just let me further know, okay, well, if I'm at a fork at the road, I got to chase this other one. Okay. Right. With the same energy. So after, my season, my last year at Western, for the second half of the year, I'm an all or nothing person. So it's like I'm putting all of my energy in getting ready for the CFL, or I'm putting all of my energy in getting ready to get a job and get my broadcasting career going. So much so that when my season ended, I bet on myself a bit, and I drove to Ottawa, where the national semifinals was, and I helped the Score, who was broadcasting game at the times, with their coverage. And that was the first year they were going to have the Vanier Cup.
You volunteered?
Volunteered. Just got in the Acura Integra from London to Ontario, across the province.
Wow.
Gassed it up. I had basically enough money to get me there and back, like with the gas. And
did you know someone there, or you just decided to go?
So good. This is why you're the interviewer, and I'm not. Good point. To go back, my second last year, that summer, I interned on a show called CFL Snap at the Score. Dwayne Ford was the host of it. He worked at the Score at the time, or he was the analyst. Greg Sansoni and James Sobalski were the hosts. And I was before that though. I was trying to get internships, and I was getting no luck. Everyone's like, "You need more experience. You need more experience." I'm like, "How do I get more experience without getting experience?" It's this double-edged sword. And so I hit up Dwayne Ford, who was a former Western student, former Western football player, former Western football player that was a running back from the Toronto area, was a brother. And I just reached out to him like, yo, I want to pick your brain about everything in the industry. And I did that. He was gracious to give me some time. And he's like, yo, I want to intern on your show. And I will stalk you. And you have a wife and kids, and you don't want those problems. So, like, where are we at with it? And so he sent one email, made one phone call, and I was interning on the show that summer. I had gone through the traditional channels For 2 summers in a row, nothing. Power of relationships, right? Relationships are life's greatest currency. And so I interned on his show. At the end of the summer when I'm going back to play, I told the executive producer of the university football coverage, this guy by the name of Glenn McDonald, who's been a great mentor to me. And he recently, not too long ago, passed, but he was the thank you. He's the reason I got my first shot on TV. And I said to him, I'm fully intending on winning the Vanny Cup and playing in the last game.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I don't, I'd love to help you on the coverage. So I go out. I'm just helping, kind of interning for free in Ottawa. We go for a meal afterwards at the Keg. They invite me out. I'm like, I know I should do this. I got no money. Like, I got to get back to London. I barely got enough money. I'm like trying to, this is before, the banking apps and all this stuff. This is how old I am. I'm trying with my unlocked, illegal T-Mobile sidekick that I drove to Buffalo to get because we didn't have them in Canada yet. I'm trying to get on the web browser to see what's in my account and what I can afford to eat. And I remember I'm like, yeah, water is good for me. Thank you. Don't need any alcohol, no drinks. What is the cheapest thing on the menu of the only time I went to the Keg and didn't have a steak? And I remember Tim McAuliffe was there. He
Shout
called
out
the
Tim,
games.
man. Love Tim.
Yeah, and so he's like, you got to get the garlic shrimp. And I'm like, no, sir, I'm good, thank you. I'm all right. He's like, what do you mean? It's shrimp, it's garlic, it's cheese, butter. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, no, I'm okay. He's like, get the garlic shrimp. I'm like, okay. So he gets it. I have one. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's delicious. I'm sweating. Am I doing dishes? How am I getting out of this? Of course, they paid for my meal and took care of me. But after that, I was like, yo, your next game is in Saskatoon for the Vanier. If you need help, I'll help you. And they were like, what? And when you have an out-of-body experience where you're looking at your own self in the scenario, I'm looking at myself like Geppetto on my shoulder, and I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, listen, I'm happy to help. They're like, listen, Media Hotel is full. We can't fly you there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get there and you can put yourself up, we'll use the help. So I used all my money that I was going to use for spring break trip. And my parents helped me with a little bit of money, I think, to book the hotel. Get a hotel across the street, and I helped them for a week at the Vanier Cup. I learned more in that week about the business and the industry than I did in my 4-year education. It was that
Did you study
invaluable.
media as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I took a split degree at Western. Media Information Technoculture was the program, split with Soch with a minor in philosophy. And actually, you didn't ask me this, but the thing I use now, out of all of that, is the philosophy. I don't use the media stuff is all obsolete.
Yeah.
It's useless. It probably was at the time because university is theory and college is practical. But the media stuff is whatever. The social stuff, the study of people, maybe a little bit, but the philosophy is what I use. I tend to register. Just look down as I'm waiting in line. I'm like, yo, I add a credit and a half, take 2 courses, and I get another line on my degree. Sign me up.
Right.
So I take the philosophy. Now, if you read one of my articles, if you listen to one of my video essays, if you listen to me on a show where I have to opine, give my opinion, some analysis, some context, it is a philosophy paper. It is structured, with deductive reasoning. And listen, if here's my thesis, if you agree on this premise and this premise and this premise, thus you'll probably agree with the conclusion. And if you don't agree with the conclusion, you'll at least understand how I got there because I'm showing my work. And so that mindset was infused into my broadcast work. It doesn't help me in my marriage because my wife thinks that not everything is so logical and black and white and that there's areas of gray. But yeah, so I went out to Saskatoon, helped them with their broadcast, learned a lot. But what I didn't realize was that they were learning about me. And they understood that I cared about the craft.
Yeah.
that I wanted to get better, that I wanted to learn, that I had no ego. Here I was thinking, I'm just going to come off the field like you see people do in the pros, going to be in the studio giving analysis. I was rolling cable. I was at the back of the booth on the phone telling them where the ball was going to be spotted so that the truck back in Toronto could put the virtual first down line. And I'm doing it like with my inside voice so that I'm not too loud to disturb McAuliffe and Dwayne Ford as they're calling the game. I wasn't doing the glamorous jobs, but I was getting a great education on that broadcast. Because again, the score, this was their Super Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the rights that TSN or Sportsnet had. Work on that broadcast. Obviously, Tim McAuliffe and Dwayne Ford, as I mentioned. Cabby, Gabrielle Richards. Sarah Orleski hosted the pregame. Adnan Verk doing sidelines. Glenn Sheeler doing sidelines. Sid Sixero doing features. So I saw all of these really talented people at the time, but also people who would go on to do like
Amazing
way bigger things.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw them up close and personal and how they worked and how they prepared. And that's just the front-facing people. The people behind the scenes were all legit. The woman who directed that game would go on to direct this small thing called The Royal Wedding and the coverage of that.
Shit.
And so I saw really talented people on the front and back end. I say all the time, the score at that era was like the Montreal Expos. Like just great for its time, a little bit wild and nutty, but it produced so many people that went on to do great things elsewhere. And I was able to witness that. So I was already kind of figuring out what that path looked like. Of course, because to get back to the beginning of the story, because it was the CFL, I didn't realize staffs are super small. Their season is super long. They don't start thinking about the draft until right before the draft. So then they start checking like, hey, Donnovan, we want to work you out. And I'm like, oh, wait, you're interested in me? I thought this was over. I was actually covering, draft and combine stuff for the score. And now, wait, you want me to work out, to get ready for the prospective draft? So was late on that. I didn't get drafted, but I got a camp invite by the Argos, and there was a bunch of other Canadian running backs that got camp invites at the same time. And I said to myself, do I want to go, maybe be a tackling dummy for 2 weeks, come back, and then come back to the score? But they're kind of looking at me side-eye like, yo, if there's a bunch of injuries in 3 months, you're on a plane to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Like, or do I want to show them like from Jump Street, like I'm about it. Like I'm here. I want to get better. I want to learn, and I want to make an impact. And so I said, like, like the first impression you make is lasting. And so I didn't go to the training.
Do you regret
camp.
that?
No. And it's funny. Like I remember there's 3 Canadian running backs that I know of that got the same kind of offer. One was my college teammate, Randy McCauley, and he went and he had camp with them and got cut. The other was Andre Dury, who had a great career, one of the best Canadian players, best Argos of all time. So we all kind of ended up, I think, where we should have been. We all took our different paths, and no, I don't regret it.
You talked about earlier a few things. One, philosophy. I just thought that was your own style, but that's interesting that you said that. 2, you talked about you still consider yourself an athlete. So how have you taken that and put that into your interview style?
Great question. So empathy. I think of the athlete first when I'm doing an interview. And so I'm balancing the needs of the athlete and the audience.
Yeah.
And so I remember, and I still am the audience, but I remember as a kid consuming this content and looking up to the athletes and the heroes that I had and wanting to learn more about their stories and having an appetite for more content. So I do kind of remember that and think about not just being an audience of one that I create, but an audience for that person or those people. But I also remember what it was like to be an athlete, and be interviewed, and be in that spot. My first experience with it, and I'm sure it's happened to you, is towards the end of high school, I represented Ontario in the Canada Summer Games in rugby. In the games just happened to be in London, Ontario, where I eventually put football. And there was a local reporter who interviewed me about the team and the championships and whatnot. Did the interview, didn't think anything of it, and the story came out. And again, the village is happy. They're printing it out. They're putting it up, in their houses, whatever. And some of their quotes were super out of context or just moved all over the place. Like nothing, too bad or nefarious. But I just remember thinking, like, I know what I said.
Yeah.
And I know what I meant, what I said.
Yeah.
And that may not have fit your
story,
pre-written story.
Yeah.
But this is not how I said what I said.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, okay, so all these athletes, when they say my words were misconstrued and taken out of context, like, oh, that's not just something they say, like, that's real.
Yeah.
And so I go to university as a student athlete, and I'm covered by the same guy who misconstrued my words when I was representing Ontario in the Canada Summer Games. And so immediately I had a guard up when dealing with that guy. Like, I'm going to be respectful and cordial, but I see you. I know how you are, and I'm going to make sure I don't give you anything that you can.
And you see that with athletes a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so for me, my mission in terms of athletes was, one, making them comfortable, but two, making the experience mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
In all ways, and making sure that they feel good about it. And so one of the, not tricks of the trade, but one of the personal things that I do when I sit down and interview someone, and it's probably why I didn't realize that we were rolling right now, is because I'm so used to my own process, is I go through and I'm like, listen, I don't know how much you know of what we're doing, because sometimes you're dealing PR agents, the athlete just knows I'm going to be here, when, I'm going to do whatever.
Yeah, we don't have that problem here.
Give them a refresher of what's going on, but I tell them, listen, when we're done, I'm going to check in with you just to make sure we're good, but also it's your story, and I want to do right by it. And so if there's anything that I've missed, there's anything that you want to expand on more, like, I want to make sure we get that. So then they immediately know, like, oh, like, there's buy-in.
This guy's
like,
on my side.
Yeah, he's not trying to use me.
I'm going to do the same thing at the end of this.
Yeah, okay. Well, listen, I talk so much that people are going to be coming for their next work day by the time this is over. But immediately, I want to make sure that this is not adversarial. Mm-hmm. I might, depending on the subject matter, I might have to ask you tough questions.
For sure.
But I'm doing that, giving you the ability to address it head on. You could take it wherever. Yeah. But I'm going to be respectful. Yeah. And so that empathy in terms of dealing with athletes is directly related to me being an athlete, still thinking like one. And I don't know if it's like you when you watch games, but for a while after, my whole life, if we use football, for example, when I watched a game, I was watching from the viewpoint of a running back. Yeah. Because it's this position I played. I'm learning and getting all these reps. I'm incorporating, do I like this? Do I not like this? And I do the same thing with content now. Like I watch and I'm critiquing as I'm, consuming. But even though I wasn't competing as an athlete anymore, I was still watching and critiquing as if I was still in the arena. Now I actually am so far removed from it. I do it from a different level where I'm looking at like team building decisions. Yep. Culture and roster management and that type of thing. But I still always want to be in that posture of athlete first.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I think when I got into broadcasting, I'll never forget 2013. So, I came out of school. I went to Las Vegas. I had that camp. And I remember I read articles. There was a Slam magazine article. There's another article, and people were saying that, like, I had a really slow release, wasn't athletic, and all these things came out. And I used to think to myself, well, this is the same thing you hear about people who make it to the NBA. You have a bunch of people who played basketball 50 years ago, or played basketball, or never played basketball or any sport, giving public opinion that other people are going to hear about this athlete and take in as truth because you're a paid professional and expert on the television. You're giving an opinion on someone when you don't do what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I hear that all the time so when I got into this space, I used to say, well, I'm on the side of the athlete. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to be critical of an athlete until they're consistently poor at whatever it is that they're doing on the floor or field or whatever.
Yeah.
Until I can see it over and over again that this is just their habit. They're not good enough to play at this level. Okay, fine. But before they even get an opportunity to get there, you got people who are constantly telling the world their opinion of someone. And today, I think it's even worse. You know, they do it in football, they do it in soccer, they do it in basketball, and it is to get a reaction out of people, and I get that. But the job as an analyst, the job as a broadcaster is to communicate what you see in the sport and deliver that to people and hopefully teach something, not diminish the efforts of people that are doing something you can't do yourself.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and it is getting worse because
Sound bites.
it's what people are incentivized to do.
That's right.
This is what the algorithm feeds. This is what people want. This is what gets engagement. And so, you know, if you say that he's trash and that's the headline, well, people will go and they'll yay or nay and whatnot, and they'll have a reaction.
Oh, we know. We've seen it.
And the algorithm doesn't really care if they're watching because they hate what you said or they love it. The algorithm's like, okay, this got a reaction, so I'm going to just feed more of it and more of it and more of it. It's a vicious cycle. But if you said, well, he may have a slow release, but if you look at his footwork, his ability to create space actually negates that slow release. And he has a prospect, you know, when they worked him out, they feel like given his size and the amount of time that he's been training, he's going to get stronger. His release actually with time is going to get quicker. And so that doesn't work. It took me, 35 seconds to say that. That type of context and nuance is not going to get the same engagement and not going to get the same sort of reaction. But it's important to understand holistically what we're talking about and to have an educated fan base. The interesting thing, though, because you can't just be a cheerleader, right?
No.
Nobody wants that.
Opinion is more important than truth.
Yeah, and it's
in content,
and it's not even just the truth; it's the why of the truth, right? So this could be my opinion, but I'm telling you why, and you may dislike the opinion, but again, I'm basing it off of something that I'm seeing that's factual, and then we can debate that, and we can agree to disagree. I remember Dwayne Casey, who is salt of the earth, human being, like the best. And, you know, him and his wife, Austin, love when they were here. You know, I would talk to him, and he's showing me photos on his phone of his kids at karate lessons, whatever, just like the best person. However, I was so cheesed on how he would use Jonas Valanciunas. And by how he would not use. And there was a constant dialogue of JV in the fourth quarter. Are we going to see JV in the fourth quarter? And Dwayne Casey's methodology is like, this guy can't get on guard threes. He cannot guard the three-point line. People are playing 5 out against us, and I just can't have those minutes. And I would argue, well, just give this man the ball in the paint and punish those teams for playing small. Like, you're playing left-handed if you leave one of your most efficient scorers out of the game in critical moments. That's just how philosophically I believe you impose your will on the opposition until you can't. However, whenever I would have to make that critique, I would always lead off by saying, Dwayne Casey's forgot more about basketball than I will ever know. And he's more invested. He's waking up every day thinking about this. So he's got more information and he's got more investment. And although we disagree on the conclusion, I don't disagree that he's making the decision that he believes gives his team the best chance to win every night, because his job depends on it. Mm-hmm. And so I think always offering that to the audience, so you don't have people out here being like, Dwayne Casey's a waste man. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He was the defensive coordinator on Dallas Mavericks team that, you know, by all intents and purposes shouldn't have won a championship, but, you know, were coached up well enough to get it done. So I always try to give context and give respect when I was making critique, because again, I know what it's like being
coming
in
from the
seat.
athlete point. Yeah. Do you think the structure of sports prepared you, or maybe failed to prepare you, for what the uncertainty within the industry you worked in for so long?
Couldn't have better preparation. It is a well that I go back to time and time and time again. And it's different areas and different facets of life, but you still have that sense of belief and that confidence. And we actually, with some colleagues and some friends, we joke about, you can tell based off who we work with, who was, somewhat high level athlete and who wasn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and you laugh because you're just going through the role.
Yeah, I am.
You work with, right? And it's like,
I am.
like, how does this person collaborates? How this person self-starts and self-motivates? How this person takes critique? How this person gives critique? And so I get energy from working with other people that are like-minded in that way. And I'm also driven by them. So that's one way. But also, if you are an athlete and you reach some sort of level, at some point you had to get it out the mud. At some point, right? It wasn't just I just rolled out of bed. I was amazing at every level, and my career's over, right? Like,
okay, but sorry to interrupt you. But within that being said, do you think then when you decide to get it out the mud, or you decide to put everything into it, do you become consumed with the sport in that point? Does it become your identity?
To a certain extent, but for me, the references that I can apply to another area of life, which I've done in broadcast, is, like, this is familiar. I don't need to fear this because I remember being the underdog. I remember being on a team that they didn't rate, and over time we were a team to be reckoned with. I remember being, fourth on the depth chart and having to work my way up and going into the coach's office and saying, what do I need to do to start?
Yeah.
Give me the blueprint, and then going back and be like, I did those things. Where are we at with it? Like, where are my reps? And then, and like, I remember all those things. And so all of those applications are the same in other areas. Mm-hmm. It was the same experience in broadcast. It'll be the same experience now, with this new chapter of my life. The difference, though, is there's naturally fear with uncertainty, but that fear isn't crippling because I have the residue of success in other areas. I have it in sports, and so I can apply that. And really, it's...
And you've proven it to yourself.
It's the mantra that, is perfect, and Fred has it. Like, I've bet on myself. Mm-hmm. In so many different areas in the past, you've bet on yourself, you've come through the other side, and you've either, one, had success, or B, maybe you didn't reach the goal and had the full experience of success that you wanted, but you're free. You can put your head down and sleep well at night because you exhausted everything you possibly could to get it done. And then you leave it with God at that point. So having that experience from sports is directly related to how I move in my professional career. And in some ways now, because it is by far the hardest thing that I have done, in some ways it's true in parenting as well. I got this group project with my wife that's called Raising Two Children and Hoping They're Not Jerks. Like, and
group project is hilarious.
That's what it is, man. That's what it is. And sometimes, she's carrying more of it than I am, and sometimes I'm carrying more. And we also have different skill sets, so we can complement each other in different ways. And again, like, probably not a coincidence, but she was a former university athlete as well. Okay. So
what did she play?
She played soccer at Queen's.
Okay.
She was all-Canadian, and she's more impressed by the fact she was all academic goalie for the Queen's Girls. Yeah. I hate Queen's, though, so.
I mean, clearly not.
Well, yeah, I'm sleeping with the enemy.
Literally and figuratively, huh?
Although I should say, I actually, in this, I'm going to get canceled among my group for saying this. I actually like Queen's football right now. Like, their coach, Steve Snyder, real good guys, got the program in a real great direction. The community of Kingston really supports. So I rate what they're doing, but, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still a Mustang.
your first big break was with the Score, and you worked your way up. You got into Sportsnet. You are a producer, writer, host, analyst, broadcast. You've done everything within the space, and you've taken and you've made your own way. And one of the things that's very important to you is race and being represented in media. Why was that such an important thing for you to talk about as often as you did?
It was important because of my experience, both proactive and reactive. One, I didn't see a lot of me. I was fortunate to be able to interact with Dwayne Ford, and then once I got to the Score, Cabby took me under his wing. But there weren't a lot of examples in Canada of people that looked like me doing what I wanted to do, and then retroactively, me doing what I wanted to do was unquestionably more difficult because of my race. And
why do you say that?
There are in media, in Canadian media, in sports media.
Oh, it's going to be good.
There is a gatekeeping aspect to opportunity. And I don't think that it's all nefarious. I think a lot of it is geography. You give in anything in life, you give opportunity to the people in your proximity, the people that you went to school with, that you came up with, that you worked with at previous places. And if all those people look like you, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy on who's going to get the opportunities. And at the same time, there isn't a demand outwardly by the audience to be reflected in the media. And so there are things that media outlets, whether it's print journalism, audio, television, can get away with in Canada that, quite frankly, they can't in the United States, because people would be outraged. And so that's why I think we see the lack of representation that we do in media in Canada. And it's not even about solely the lack of representation front-facing, on air, writing columns. It's about the editorial decisions that are made. It's about who's in the C-suites, who's making the decisions. Like, that's really where the power is. And so I'm optimistic that change will come as the pipeline changes. But for me, the change can't come fast enough.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons why it's been important for me to speak up on it is because, and again, this comes from being an athlete, I'm outcome driven. A lot of people feel this way. A lot of people are vexed. A lot of people are frustrated. A lot of people's careers may have been stifled because of it. Okay. I used to, my lock screen on my phone used to say, "Nobody cares, work harder."
Yeah.
And it's a slogan that the Baltimore Ravens had a couple years ago. And for me, it's like, these are the cards that we have been dealt. I can't go back and change my race. And quite frankly, I wouldn't want to anyways. So what can I do with this situation to make it better for myself, certainly, have the ingenuity to figure it out, but also make it better for people coming up, right? There is no class in J School about being a racialized journalist. You are asked to swim without a life vest in shark-infested waters. And so you just have to figure it out from day one. And so, I've tried to, as I've gotten comfortable in my career, because at the beginning, I'm just trying to figure out my career. But as I've gotten comfortable, I've tried to figure out solutions. I've tried to create awareness. I've tried to bring other people up and mentor. And once you get at a level on that, totem pole of hierarchy of needs where, okay, I'm good, I'm established, I now can spend energy to help other people, it's really fulfilling.
I'm glad you said that. Do you think, as a black man in media, especially in this country where there's very few, like there's like 7 or 8 broadcasting jobs in the country, I got 2 of them. You know, like there's very, very limited space. Did you feel the need once you got up to a certain level to protect it? Not so much to reach back and say, hey, let me help. I'm not saying that you didn't do that, but I mean, while you're climbing, while you're ascending to a point where you have power and influence and where like you're not going to get fired, basically. Mm-hmm. Did you feel the need to hold on to it? Because that's something that I was told when I got into this industry, you know, tread lightly, don't make too much noise, don't ruffle too many feathers, because like that, you could be gone.
So I think just the way we're culturally raised, you know, our previous generation, that's how they felt, right? And kind of be docile, don't be too loud, you know, you say thank you and please, and just get in where you fit in, make it to
or just
early
get in
retirement,
at all.
or just get in at all. You know, get the gold watch, you know, get your CPP, and that was the goal. Yeah. That was the dream. And so that was their survival technique and mentality. And so our grandparents and our parents, and this is not just for, you know, for BIPOC individuals, this is for new Canadians. I feel like that is the mindset. And, you know, I think you start that way, but then once you start to move up in your career and you're in different scenarios and you're in different locker rooms and you're in different meetings and you hear people pitch things and hear people pitch ideas and hear people come with stuff and you're like, wait, like that's not actually that impressive or that's not right or that. And so you then feel like, oh no, like I am able and deserve more. And so I'm going to be a little bit bullish about promoting myself and going after what I want and not just being happy to be here because I earned the right to be here in a way that some other people didn't necessarily have to earn and go through the trials and tribulations that I did. I think, you know, with the concept of protecting it sometimes, although that is the counsel and advice with love, I think the manifestation of that, sometimes that's negative, is you protect it so hard that you're just thinking of protecting yourself, and then there's a crabs in the bucket mentality.
That's right.
And it's like, oh, I'm looking around, there's not many of us. They're not looking for many of us. I got to make sure that it's just me. And I think that doesn't really benefit anybody. I strongly believe there's enough food on the plate for all of us to eat. And I strongly believe that, you know, we're stronger, kind of unified, you know, as a fist than we are separate. And it's not even just about collaborating and in opportunity. It's also just about support. It's also just about having a network of people who understand what you've gone through. I haven't talked about this publicly too much, but
no, please do.
I mean, it's not that deep. Don't get too excited.
Okay.
I'm
still excited.
Don't get ready to clip this and put it on IG just yet. But during the racial reckoning,
you mean George Floyd?
2020, yeah, George Floyd. There was a group of Canadian broadcasters that was put on a IG DM group, spearheaded by Kayla Gray. KG, shout out to her. Mm-hmm. And you know, we would talk and support each other's work, and you know, periodically get on Zoom calls and just chop it up. And how are things going? How are they dealing with things at your place? And how, if at all, can we support and just talk through things? And it was therapy. It was so educational for me to be able to learn from other people, see, you know, how my scenario was in some ways different, some ways better or worse, have an appraisal of what's going on in the industry. We're all beneficiaries of working together, right? The only person who benefits when labor doesn't collectively support each other is the employer, right? And so I love that in the industry in Canada, although there isn't many of us and it's small, that there is a sense of community among, the Black creators. I really, appreciate their work, appreciate, what they're doing, inspired by them, have been helped by them. And I'll give you a real life example. In that time, on one of those Zoom calls, I remember saying, I'm not covering George Floyd. I felt like it was being exploited. I felt like people weren't keeping the same energy when Ahmaud Arbery, was killed just, not too long prior. I felt like people were not paying attention in the same way to Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, our trauma is not a trend. And so I don't want to just jump on this wave and just benefit from this trend. It made me gross, and I'm like, I'm not touching this. And that was coming off a period where I felt pressure every time there was an advancement of the Colin Kaepernick story. I had to write about it. I had to talk about it. And I got into sports because it's light and it's fun. And all of a sudden, I'm waking up thinking, all right, I'm going to talk about what's going on with Cap, and I'm going to get a bunch of terrible messages on social media or whatever. And who wants to sign up for that? But if I don't do it, who's going to?
Yeah.
And I felt that pressure, and I'm like, I'm sitting this out. Like, there is no sports angle to George Floyd at the time. Obviously, there later would be. But in the immediate days after his death, and I just felt like the conversation is going to lily pad to something else. That's what the news cycle is like. Some change in legislation, some catastrophe, something a politician says, and we're not going to spend time on this issue anymore. And God bless him, Morgan Campbell stepped up and was like, no, you're not sitting this out. You're going to talk about it. There are clicks in these stories, and if someone's going to get the clicks, let it be you. And more importantly, you have something to offer on this story. And if you don't talk about it, write about it, someone else is going to do it, and they're not going to do as good a job as you are. So yeah, you are going to write about it. And I was like, all right, Morgan, I guess I am. And that period was transformational for me in my career. One, it wasn't just a couple days story. It kept going, even though I was skeptical of the fact that it would. But I remember, an executive in the industry at the time came to me and said, you've really found a voice during this period. And I said to him, no, I haven't found a voice. I found an audience.
Now you're just hearing mine now.
Yeah, I've been saying these things. I've been writing these things. I've been talking about these things when asked for years now. The difference is people are starting to pay attention. And, that was a trying and exhausting period of my career and life, but it was an important one because the willingness to hear the conversation started to change, and I was able to cash in that currency later talking about other issues, which has been beneficial.
Because you work in, you're front facing, as am I, TV, radio, you've done everything under the sun. Has there been a time where you felt invisible, even though you are being seen all the time by everybody? Meaning invisible, meaning you had to hold your tongue or not share an opinion or, take a step back. I know George Floyd, you stepped forward, but since you said that, I wanted to know if there's any time you actually felt like that.
Yeah, there are.
How do you navigate those?
It's tough. You're making constant calculated decisions. And for me, again, being outcome driven, my always quote to myself is, what's your end game? And so, what is your goal saying this or writing this or tweeting this? And is this additive to the ultimate change you want to see or place you want to be or how you want to be perceived? Or is it not? And could it be a hindrance? And so there is no perfect formula or solution. other than gut check and pressure checking it with, other people in my life, you know, my wife, if I'm arguing with someone on Twitter about something, my wife is like, "Why are you giving this energy? Like what?" and there is truth to it. I mean, the reason is because I'm competitive.
Yeah.
But am I going to be, social media evangelist and change people's minds? Like, most cases probably not. But if there's something that I'm compelled to speak on, maybe I'll be called to. But yeah, you're constantly doing that appraisal in terms of what is the appropriate amount to push, when to. There's also, a boy who cried wolf aspect to it, and just not wanting to be tuned out in terms of having these types of conversations. And so, picking your times strategically and selectively in a way where you don't feel like you're selling out, it is tough. And again, these are things that they don't teach you in school, and because there are not a lot of people, not even in that position, but not even thinking about it actively for you to bounce ideas off of, it can be tough.
So within that, there's some of the things I get to do. I get to research, and I researched you quite a bit. So tell me about the Bennett rule. Throughout all of that, how do you keep, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. So how have you kept doing that?
How did you get that?
Come on, man. I'm well researched, brother.
Apparently, I'm trying to think where you would have got that.
Hey, man. I did my homework.
Yeah, damn. I'm like stumped now. So yeah, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And I mean, I suppose I applied that in being a running back in a way. But so that literally was written and plaqued in my house as a kid, that my dad would put up. And it's funny, like you walk past it every day. I'm certainly as a 15-year-old, whatever, I wasn't,
really
out here reciting it to my friends, whatever. But like, give my parents and my dad specifically credit. Like, you never know, like when you plant that seed, when it's gonna, flourish and blossom. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it stuck with me, and I still think about it and believe it. And because of it, the word I hate in the English dictionary is later. Like, I don't like to talk about later. I'm going to get to this later. I'm going to do this later. Later is just another way of saying never, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. And so, we always wait for this perfect scenario of, you know what, I'm going to spend more time with my kids later. I just have this, big project or big time at work or big time in my career. And like, one, that's probably not true, because there's going to be something else later that comes. But two, your kid's never going to be, for me, 3 and 6 again. They're never going to be learning to ride their bike without the training wheels again, or whatever. My son struggles with going to the dentist, super scared and didn't like it, whatever. And, for the first time, he had a session with no issues, no tears. And, I was like, good for you. You bodied that. Like, there's some growth there. I'm never going to get back to that age and stage. And so for me, I try as best as possible to not put things off and say, I'm gonna get that skill in the future. I'm gonna get that opportunity in the future. I'm gonna take care of that in the future. I'm gonna reach out to this person I love in the future. I try to attack it now, knowing that our days on this earth are not infinite, right? They're finite, and so I want to be making use of them aggressively. Yeah. And if anything, like, I'd rather pull back and be like, okay, I need some time just to think, to breathe, to recalibrate, rather than the opposite, where I need to start to get going and be lax. So, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. It's just the mindset of, okay, this is what I did in 2025. At this time in 2026, I want to look at my 2025 features and like, hate that creative choice. I would have done this differently. Man, we're still on those lenses. We're shooting this differently now. You know what? I should have done a much better social media version of that feature. I want to make sure I'm constantly progressing. And if I'm impressed with some of the stuff I did in the past now, then I'm not doing enough now.
Yeah.
And so I constantly want to keep pushing.
Your word is later. Mine is with this, you'll figure it out. I used to hate that shit, man. Like that for me, that just means you have no idea and you can't help me, you know? So when I stopped playing and I was looking for another opportunity, a job or something that I could get my hands on or something that I could like identify with, they're like, oh, you're smart, you'll figure it out. I tell myself, I'll figure it out later on. Same sentiment, you know, because transition is not linear. You know, it's not something you're just going to wake up one day and be in another field and be good at it for that matter, right? Yeah. So it then becomes more about navigating the time between who you were and who you want to be. So if you were to give anybody advice from your situation and what you've experienced in the 17 years between the Score and Sportsnet, what would you say to them? Would you recommend one to get into the industry, and how do they navigate who they were and who they're going to become while they're in it?
Wow. So would I recommend them getting in the industry? No. Become an investment banker. Just watch your money grow all day. So I work in the industry. My wife also works in the industry. And we joke all the time. It's a sad joke, but I love what I do. I can't imagine doing anything else. Same thing for her. She's good at it, and similar to me, she is a hyphen where she's a host, producer, writer, etc. And having said that, given all the success and experiences and the love for it that we have,
and admiration,
and the admiration for it, I want my children to do anything but go into media, anything but. And I just know that it is an increasingly difficult field, and it is an increasingly subjective field. And so, you know, someone could be checking for you, or the world could be checking for you in a certain time, and then things change, realities change, and your skill set may not diminish. Your aptitude and appetite and hunger to succeed may not diminish, but because of the way that the decks are stacked, you may not have the same opportunity. It is not necessarily a meritocracy the way other fields are. And I say that as someone who I know I've been privileged to have a really rewarding career. So, I mean, I even think of my fortune of getting into it when I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Timing is very important.
Yeah. And coming into it now for young kids, as much as I help them and I want to help them, I want to see them have great careers, I think to myself, man, like it is so much more difficult in many ways now than it was when I was coming out.
Time out. I got to ask. You said earlier, bet on yourself. And it's the same thing with sports. There's a duality between it is extremely difficult to make it as a professional now. You got so many more people playing and doing things, and the money is so much greater, and everyone wants to get there. So how do you find how do you tell someone who's 12, 13, don't bet on yourself, do this instead, because this is such a tough industry based on my experience, when it could be different for you?
Yeah, I don't tell them that. I get on my knees every night and I pray that they find something else, that they're good at something else. But I know I don't tell them that, because you love what you love, and you're going to do it anyway. And you're going to do it anyways.
And you're gonna, but then you got to live with the choices, or live with the consequences, both good and bad, of that choice. Prime example: I wouldn't know you if I didn't play if I didn't play basketball.
Yes.
So that's a positive consequence. Yeah. Negative consequence is the shit that I had to endure, and same thing goes for any other athlete. Right?
Yeah. No, so true. I think, to me, I would say to them is, like, I know you think you want it. Do you really want it?
Right.
And do you understand what it entails?
Right.
And are you willing to go through it in order to get it? And if you are, then, you know, God bless you, and I'm happy to help you. But I think there is a microwave aspect of our current culture where I joked earlier about, you know, the OGs saying, yo, when are you going to get your own show? I think people now expect, I'm going to get my own show right away.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as much as I was thinking to myself and hoping I would get one, I didn't expect to right away. I think now there's an expectation like, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to have my own show, I'm going to drive a sports car, and it's going to
Life's
be
great.
a wrap. Life's great, and that's not the way it works. I do think, though, the benefit, and what I would tell them, is there are tools now where you can bet on yourself in a different way. Unlike in my era, you don't need legacy media to give you an opportunity. You don't need someone to finally give you an internship,
Right,
or give you a part-time role. You can start a podcast. You can grow your YouTube following. You can become IG influencer and start making money if you have a big enough following. There is a
Tools.
way to bet on yourself, and maybe you won't reach the level of stardom on your own. Maybe you will, and many have, but what you can do is you can get the prerequisite reps that are needed, the experiences, time in front of camera, thinking about storytelling, finding compelling angles, in many cases editing, producing. You can get that stuff on your own. You don't have to wait for someone to give you that opportunity. You can go
Create
get yourself a
yourself.
MacBook and iPhone and start cooking immediately. And so I think that's the benefit there, is that, well, no one can keep that from you. You can start doing that. And look at someone like Steve Dangle, who became such an undeniable presence off of his Leaf fandom and his creative storytelling online, that the industry came to him and said, okay, we want to incorporate this with Sportsnet for you to help us grow our channels, and eventually for you to become part of our broadcasts and make those fun, entertaining. And then he used that experience to build himself up so much that he started his own podcast network, and he's now bringing other creators up. And I think that is like the A1
extreme version, but
example. But I think there are lots of other smaller examples, and I think there will become more as the marketplace becomes shaken up a little bit, when brands are looking to go directly to audience in a different way. So I am cautiously optimistic for the generation coming up, partially because I've gone to friends' classes who are teachers and had some personal mentorship, and I know that kids coming up are really bright. But I am still very pessimistic about the ability to just do what I did. Graduate, work on the ground floor, work your way up, learn, have mentors, build, 17 years later, have some equity and stake in the game. Be able to do that in one of the most expensive cities in the country while, being able to afford your life, have a family, all that type of thing. So that aspect of it is a bit scary, but
a bit.
If it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And there are so many people at the beginning, and this is not new, this is my era, who thought they wanted to do broadcast until they felt what it really meant, and then they quickly figured out that they weren't cut for it.
And so there's years in it in the same position and not moving up and not getting the opportunity, and then you have life hits you, and you getting older, you don't even look the same on camera no more. You see weight in places you didn't know existed. All that, it happens.
But the funny thing is, no different from sports. If you have the self-belief and the self-confidence and you understand your why and you're trying to get it, nobody can tell you anything. It doesn't actually matter what anyone says.
You'll do it. And
you'll figure it out.
I saw a clip, actually. I think it was Woj. And he was talking about NIL kids. And he said that these kids now, they're making so much money in college, they're staying 4 years. Well, if they don't go to the NBA and they continue playing, he's like, you're going to really see who loves what they're doing.
Yes.
Because you're now going to go to Europe and play for maybe a few $1,000s every month, 8K, 10K, whatever the amount is, but in a small gym in a small town where you're not really known anymore, you have no social media influence because you're playing overseas, but you still can probably. But he said, and it's true, you're really gonna see who loves the craft and what they're doing, because money aside, you go overseas because you love it.
Yeah.
There's no other reason to go. Money's great, but you go over there because you love the game.
Yeah. So in football, we have this term called for the love of the game routes. And it's basically those routes where once out of every 50 times you run it, will you be looked at by the quarterback? Never mind get the ball. Like, you're running for exercise.
Right.
You're clearing out a safety. You're holding down the backside halfback. But you have to run it every time like you're going to get the ball. Otherwise, the play doesn't work. And you not only will you not get the ball, the other guy in the read progression is not getting the ball. Or if he is, he's getting his head taken off. And talking to similarly some college football evaluators, one of the things they said is because of NIL, it's actually easier now to evaluate talent because you've got some players who are just playing for stats, playing for numbers because they're looking to cash that in on opportunity and whatnot, and then you got some players playing for the love of the game. But when all of those players have money, we don't have to imagine, okay, when he becomes a pro and we give him money,
what would he do?
Is he still going to grind? Right now, before, you're on scholarship, you're trying to buy your mama a house, you're getting up every morning because that goal is draft day and, shaking the commissioner's hand and getting that generational wealth. For some people, the goal ends there. And it's tough to, remember Evander Holyfield, the boxer, would say, it's tough to get up and train when you sleep on sand sheets. And so when you're grinding and trying to be the heavyweight champ, it's easy to get up and train. When you've got all the money, when you've got all the access, now go train at 6 a.m.
Right.
And see, can you still go after it? And so they felt NIL has helped them because they got an appraisal of, you already have money, how do you react with it? We don't have to find out once you're at this level if you're still going to be first in, last out. So all this stuff is pretty fascinating to me.
I feel like we're on like a first take now because I got to ask, what's next?
What's next? It depends. When is this coming out?
We haven't decided yet. I have no idea. So, but after you announce it, for sure. Well, I could tell you that. We'll cut this part out, but yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to tell you. It just depends when it's coming out.
When are you making your decision? I feel like we're on LeBron 2.0. Don't tell me you got a partnership with Hennessy.
No, I don't have.
Okay.
I have a partnership with Hennessy.
When is the decision going to be made?
There's multiple decisions. So.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I'll just talk and we'll figure it out.
Sounds like a plan.
So in terms of what's next.
Sportsnet's done. 17 years.
Yeah.
Hung up the hat, the jersey. You're going in the rafters.
Yeah, I don't know about the rafters. Maybe
You're in my rafters.
I appreciate that. Maybe it's like one of those walks of fame where like there's a cobblestone with your name on it or something like that.
We love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sportsnet's done, and I'm so blessed and grateful for the time I had and what I learned and what I'm gonna be able to carry into that next phase. And it's funny, like opportunities come into your life, for a season and often for a reason. And my time at the Score was super important. I don't think I would get the exposure to the really talented people if I wasn't there at that time. A time at Rogers and Sportsnet was super valuable in terms of understanding the business and having access to these bigger platforms. And so, I feel like, I've graduated those two, scenarios. I was at JUCO, I was at a Power 5, and now I can kind of go do my own thing. But what's next for me is twofold. I've got some opportunities in pencil, not pen,
Okay.
that I'm excited about, but I'm also excited before I finalize them to see what comes to me. And so you have this appraisal of what you're good at and what you can do and what you can add value to. And, I have that idea, but also, you make plans and God laughs and the world speaks to you, and who reaches out and with what, can be different from what you view it as. And for me, it has to a certain extent. So I'm going to take some time to kind of explore that and see what that looks like. I do know locked in I will be doing the Winter Olympics for CBC.
Okay.
So you'll see me there. This will probably come out after this happens, but I'll be, speaking of university coverage, I'll be doing the Vanier Cup for CBC. So you'll
Going back to where you started.
That's right, yeah. So you'll see me on Canada's national public broadcaster, and then from there TBD. But it's less for me about the what. It's more about the who and the why, which is what I'm trying to figure out. And the who, in terms of, I have the ability to choose what I do and who I work with. And so I'm at just that age and phase of life where, like, I'm on the no jerk rule. Like, the only place I want jerk now is in my chicken. Like, I don't want to deal with anyone that is less than, A1 team player. And so finding those partnerships that make sense, it's one. But two, there is this Japanese principle called the kaji, and it is essentially the nexus of a couple things, right? So what do you love to do? What are you good at? And those are,
yeah, two different things.
they're not necessarily the same.
No, they're not.
They can be,
but
they're not always the same.
For sure.
What can you get paid to do? Which, again, not always the same. And then what does the world need? Like, what's the market asking? And so if you find opportunity right in between all those four things, like, that's what you're called to do. That's where you're going to be able to provide. You're going to have your cup filling. You're going to feel good about yourself. People are going to feel good about interacting. And so that mindset that I'm looking at all these opportunities. Now, listen, it is privilege, one, to have choice.
Yeah.
And two, to be able to even endeavor to get them all in the same thing. Sometimes, and this has been the case for me at points in my life, you have to augment those things. So if you're not getting that from your professional career, but you have to pay the bills, maybe you're doing something on the side. Maybe you're volunteering, right? Maybe you're finding other ways to replicate that in your life so that you feel good about things. So either way, no matter how it's structured, the types of opportunities I'm looking at, it's with that in mind. But in terms of what I can share right now, you can find your boy on Channel 6 for a little bit.
We love that. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you'll do fine. I know you're ready to make that jump, or else you wouldn't decide to. But I want to congratulate you on a successful career in one place. Being a black man in this industry for as long as you have been, very difficult to do, and you've done it with grace. We like to play a game. It's called For Three to wrap things up.
Okay.
So you can answer any of these questions with one word or one sentence.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, as you've noticed,
yeah, no, you're giving
brevity is not a
parables.
strength,
Yeah.
so
You're
I
giving
will try.
parables. It's. But we listen. We like the context. It's fine. It's good. The more someone can speak, the better. Honestly, one word that defines your journey thus far.
Should have prepared for this. Gonna have to edit out all this dead silence. One word. I gotta make it good. It's not great. That's what I got.
Great.
No. I'm giving you a disclaimer on that word. Compounding.
It's a great word to use. I've never heard that.
Compounding. I think this journey has been compound interest.
Absolutely.
Just the more you put into it, invest more, other people have put into it, I've continued to get more and more and more.
If legacy is a story others say about us, what story would you hope that they say about you?
So, and this is not one word. I can give you a
This is the
sentence.
sentence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. These are some good questions, man.
They are,
I know,
man.
man. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So, I want to be perceived by my audience the same way I'm perceived by my friends and family. I want it to be comfortable, but also we have two different types of relationships in life: root relationships and leaves relationships. And the leaves are kind of there in the good times, and then weather changes and
Fall
they blow
comes
away.
and yeah.
The roots are always there, and so whether it's as a broadcaster, as a friend, family member, I want to be considered one of those root people. And so if that's my legacy, I've done my job.
Well said. Every chapter is a form of becoming. One word to describe who you're becoming now.
It's like a therapy session. This is probably too simple, but better would be the word I'd
No,
use.
that's not simple at all. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Again, I wanted to thank you for doing this. I think you've been very insightful. I remember in the beginning I said I want to tell people how I know you. So 2012, first injury, I tore my ACL. The next following year, they made a big deal about me coming back. They called it the return with Adidas, and we made a commercial. I could barely run. And then I got a call from my coach saying, "Hey, Warren, the Score wanted to, do a piece on you, you coming back." And they're like, "Donnovan Bennett's coming to interview you, and you came in with your suit. I think you had a red tie, if I'm not mistaken."
That sounds about right.
This is when I did a lot of interviews, but I didn't understand just how much or the impact it would have. And that video is still up on the Score. I mean, on YouTube. And if you watch it, I'm stuttering. I'm so nervous. I cannot speak in front of the camera whatsoever. You asked me a question about my dad. It's a touchy subject for me and everything he's done to make sure I'm back on my feet and walking. And I was such. And now I look back at it, I'm like, that was a pivotal moment for me because I was sitting across from someone who looks like me. And I remember when I wanted to get into this space, I referenced a lot of the people that I sat down with, and you were one of the names that I thought of and that I spoke of. And it was such an important moment for me. So I want to say thank you for doing that interview. You came with the camera guy. We sat in the gym and we talked, and that was a special moment. And what you said you wanted to do, you did, because I'm living proof of that. So I just want to say thank you for the time, for doing this and doing that so many years ago.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Those are great memories and great experience for me and reps, and I look at that time fondly. So life's wild, right? Look, if you were to have told either of us then that we'd be sitting here now,
Yeah, I would have laughed.
right, on the
Yeah,
journey that both of us, very differently, but have gone on and then now have come back together where it's full circle and you're interviewing me, right? Like, that's crazy. And that's just this chapter, right?
Yeah.
There will be
Others.
certainly another chapter. So I can't wait. Can't wait for it, and specifically for you in your media career. Can't wait to see where it takes you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, man.
Anytime.
Cool. Hey, if you like this episode, I'm sure you're going to like the other ones. Again, the best way to support this podcast, and it costs you nothing to do, like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share with a friend. Until next time.